Oh, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in to WWE Now. Welcome to the Clash in Italy preview show. I cannot wait to break down this card that has very quickly become an absolutely loaded 5-match card. I am Sam Roberts, of course, with me, the one and only Megan Morant. And Megan, we are not breaking these 5 matches down alone.
No, we couldn't.
No, we couldn't. We don't have the ability to.
These are big matches.
Huge matches. So we needed somebody big. The biggest analyst that we could possibly find. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us, of course, Big E. There he is in all of his glory. Welcome to WWE Now, Big E. And I mean, as you look at this card, as you look at what we've got in front of us for Clash in Italy, do you remember a 5-match show that from top to bottom was more loaded than this one?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Look, we got a lot of future Hall of Famers. We have former world champions, future world champions. This might be the most stacked just with star power alone.
I would agree. Let's start it. Let's start running through these matches. Let's start talking about what we've got in front of us, because I think we've got a lot to talk about with all of them. And you talk about future, former world champions. What about the fact that both the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line at Clash in Italy? And what about the fact that Roman Reigns is walking into Italy, the World Heavyweight Champion, and he is defending against Jacob Fatu, and this is not just a rematch. This, my friend, is tribal combat. Megan, when you find out that it is tribal combat that Jacob and Roman are squaring off in with the World Heavyweight Championship on the line, who do you start leaning more towards in thinking this is the guy that's walking out with the title?
Right now, based on everything that we've seen, Jacob Fatu.
Wow.
Jacob Fatu has gotten the better of Roman Reigns ever since Backlash, really. And yes, I know that Roman won that match at Backlash, but who are we talking about after Tampa and Backlash? We were talking about the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu, and how he decimated Roman Reigns. And Jacob wasn't done. He took his entire family out on Monday Night Raw a couple weeks ago, going through the barricade, and he hasn't backed down since.
Yeah, but this is tribal combat. It changes everything. I mean, this is not like when this all started, Jacob shows up and he says, I don't want to be the tribal chief, but I want everything that you have. And this has evolved to a place where the only way that both parties can get to the spot that they want to get to is that tribal chief title has to be on the line. The only way that Roman can get acknowledged by Jacob Fatu is beating him in tribal combat. I mean, I know picturing Roman losing the World Heavyweight Championship this quickly, that seems far-fetched. But the idea that he would drop that title of tribal chief to Jacob Fatu, to me, that feels even more insane.
And can you imagine if Jacob Fatu is able to make WWE in his image? If he is the one who is now the tone setter, who is the one who calls the shots, who is the one who is at the very top of the pyramid, I think the landscape of WWE completely changes if Jacob can beat Roman Reigns. And to your point, look, I understand. I think Jacob is easily the most dangerous threat that Roman has had probably in years. But man, we're talking about Roman Reigns here. It's very difficult for me to imagine him losing the title in Italy. But if anyone can do it, it is this version of Jacob Fatu, who has proven that rules don't matter. Referees aren't going to stop him. He is going to go to any and every length to get that position that he craves.
What about the cheers and the boos of it all, the good guys and the bad guys? Traditionally, you just describe Jacob Fatu as a guy who doesn't care about the rules, as a guy who referees aren't going to stop him, right? This should be, in any scenario where the World Heavyweight title is on the line, Jacob Fatu should be the quote-unquote bad guy here, and Roman Reigns should be the good guy here. But I watched on Monday Night Raw. Roman Reigns could not take out Jacob Fatu by himself.
Nope.
He needed the Usos to help him. And for me to be pointing it out, it has to be true because I do so reluctantly. But not only did it turn into a 3-on-1 scenario, but after Roman was done, before Jacob was the one that actually challenged him to tribal combat, Roman Reigns looked at Adam Pearce and said, go ahead and fire him. He was ready for Adam Pearce to fire his cousin. Do you think that Roman Reigns walks into this match more of a villain in the story than Jacob is?
A couple weeks ago, I wouldn't have said that Roman Reigns could be a villain, but especially after we saw him tell Adam Pearce to fire Jacob Fatu, to me.
Yeah, but you were saying Jacob Fatu should be fired after Backlash.
Well, I was saying
that would make you a villain too and a hater.
I was never saying he should be fired.
Yeah,
You're putting words in my mouth. I was just pointing out that after his actions at Backlash, that maybe a suspension could be something that was on the table. And you, Sam Roberts, called me a narc for even suggesting that Jacob Fatu should be suspended.
That was some real front of the bus behavior on your part, Megan Moran. E, what do you think?
Look, I don't believe that Jacob should be suspended, but the question of who's the villain is going in. Look, I think we have we've seen some crowds who are bloodthirsty, and if you're looking for blood, Jacob is going to bring that. If you want some mayhem, he is the one to deliver that. I think that Roman is always going to be adored. He is always going to be. We're going to see a lot of ones up in the air. But when it comes time for that match, I think a lot of the crowd is going to be behind Jacob Fatu because he is going to bring something chaotic. You don't know like this. With this match and just understanding that really the stipulation kind of allows things to be wide open. You don't know where in the arena this goes. You don't know what kind of weapons and instruments. This thing can really get out of hand very, very quickly.
Yeah, but also the fact that there are no rules and that it's tribal combat, generally speaking, look, there have been 2 tribal combat matches previously. Roman Reigns beat Solo Sikoa one-on-one on the first Monday Night Raw on Netflix. But before that, he beat Jey Uso. And in that match, I believe, if I remember correctly, at that SummerSlam, Jimmy actually showed up and helped Roman beat Jey. That's all to say that the Usos are clearly on the side of Roman Reigns. And based on the build to this match, any hang-up that Roman had about the Usos helping him is no longer a hang-up that he has because we've watched it happen. I think you could talk about the mayhem, the weaponry, the violence that Jacob Fatu is all too familiar with. But at the same time, when the rules are off, I think Roman is pretty good at using all of his family members to help him. And I feel like that's back on the table more so than it has been all year.
What I think really opens things up is we've seen people come to Roman's aid. I'm still wondering if anyone comes to Jacob's aid as well. Look, we know this is a very large family, whether it's the MFTs, whether it's someone we haven't seen in WWE. There are a lot of other potentials in play. But we've also seen a Jacob Fatu who's been able to dispatch of the Usos fairly quickly. And look, we're talking about arguably the greatest tag team of all time, on the Mount Rushmore, at least, of tag teams. But I'm not sure and this is a bold statement, but I'm not sure if the Usos being involved even matters that much to Jacob. I think that just speaks to his level of intensity, his level of reckless abandon right now. We're seeing a Jacob Fatu who is not willing to relent. I don't know what it's going to take to put this man down, but bring the Usos, bring the cousins, bring the aunts, bring the uncles, bring everybody, because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
I just want Solo to be involved because after Roman said Solo couldn't get a cup of coffee delivered to the arena, I was upset by that. I was offended. I thought he went too far.
Yeah, it was you. You were watching that on an iPad like Michael Jordan. You took that personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Why Solo catching strays right now? Come on.
I get that. I understand that. I mean, listen, I think if there was ever, you're always looking for those shock moments in WWE. And if there was ever a shock moment, I think Jacob Fatu walking out with the Ulafala and the World Heavyweight Championship would be a shock moment. I think at the same time, we've also, if we've been watching the product, have been made aware that it is a direct, real, and very potential possibility that we could see this. For me, I can't. I can't see it. And maybe that's because I just can't. The ramifications of this whole thing, this is what I'm stuck on, right? The ramifications of it. I can't see Jacob Fatu leading this bloodline and actually being called the tribal chief. At the same time, I can't see him acknowledging Roman Reigns. I mean, I think this whole thing might implode upon itself by the time it actually hits the ring.
Yeah, I can't see Jacob ever being someone to actually take the time to acknowledge Roman. But look, and Roman still has a lot of gas in the tank, but his age starts with a 4. At some point, that torch is going to need to be passed. And if there's anyone in the family who can take it by force, even if Roman is not ready to pass it, I think Jacob is the one. If I look at anyone else I look at that bloodline, I look at that family. If anyone is set to take what Roman has built and put themselves at the very top of that, I think it's Jacob Fatu. And I think it's this version of Jacob as well, bringing back the tongue and death grip. We thought he was done after Tampa. He said, nope, this doesn't end here. Look, if anyone can do it, we keep saying, I can't see Roman lose. I can't see Roman losing, and I'm with you. But if there's anyone in the world that can do it, it's Jacob Fatu.
I would agree with that 100%, actually. When we talk about these matches that have a lot of personal ramifications, I know one that Megan Morant is very invested in, one that we only found out was happening last Saturday, 7 days before, or I guess 8 days. Clash in Italy's on Sunday. But we found out at Saturday night's main event after Becky Lynch, real quickly into the match, decided to get referee Jessica Carr in between herself and Sol Ruca and kind of sabotage the match so that she could leave with the title, I would imagine. The match is made official after Sol Ruca wins that match by disqualification. We're getting the Intercontinental Championship on the line at Clash in Italy. Sol Ruca versus Becky Lynch. Megan, you've got to admit, this is a big spot for Sol Ruca.
Massive spot for Sol Ruca. I still question whether Sol Ruca is actually ready for an Intercontinental title match against the greatest female wrestler of all time. And also, crooked Jessica Carr lived up to her name to a T at Saturday night's main event. Just explain this to me. Okay. Sol Ruca hits the soul snatcher on Jessica Carr. Jessica Carr got her soul snatched by Sol Ruca, yet somehow, someway, Becky Lynch is the one who's disqualified. You know, we've seen it all the time in sports, right? Like Brady. Refs love to see him coming. Brady would get a call here or there. But you earn it, right? When you're the greatest at anything, you earn those calls that you get. I would just like to see Becky Lynch get a call here or there. She is the greatest female wrestler of all time, and when all is said and done, I will remember that she had to do it the hard way.
That Becky Lynch.
Megan, I think you forgot a detail, though. There's a little detail in how those events transpired. You missed the part where Becky takes Jessica, pulls her in front of Sol to make sure that the Soul Snatcher doesn't hit Becky, it hits Jessica Carr. That detail was left out, and thus the DQ happened. That was the reason. Well,
I think for once there was like a referee who wasn't like a fool in there that actually understood what had happened.
For once,
Becky Lynch put her hands on Jessica Carr.
The second I saw Jessica Carr during the entrances, I said, "Oh, we're in trouble."
Yeah, I bet you did, because Becky Lynch probably needs special officials. If you're a champion, it doesn't matter who the referee is. You're going to win that match. Listen, I think the fact that Becky Lynch tried to get a referee involved like 5 minutes into that match.
What, are you trying to insinuate that Becky's scared?
I didn't even have to say it. That's weird that you got so defensive before I even said it.
That is why you're Scam Roberts. You think she's scared of Sol Ruca. Really?
I think she was scared of losing the match at Saturday night's main event, and she did lose the match at Saturday night's main event. It officially made Sol Ruca's main roster record 2-1, or 1-2, I suppose.
They're just handing out wins over there.
No, well, yeah, 1-2. And I here's what I think. I think you're looking at a new Intercontinental champion at Clash in Italy. I think that this is going to be. Sol Ruca. When you look at the history of the Intercontinental Championship, it was built for athletes like Sol Ruca, who are going to show up and deliver the match. The bell to bell is going to get the audience talking. I remember going back to 1991, being a little kid, sitting there watching SummerSlam, and Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect blew my little kid mind. To me, it defined what the Intercontinental Championship was in the men's division forever. And you can go to Bret, you can go to Shawn, you can go to so many different athletes that made that Intercontinental Championship what it still is today. And I think Sol Ruca is the type of athlete that's going to be able to do that to this title in the women's division.
Listen, I agree with everything you're saying about Sol Ruca and her athleticism and what she has been able to do in the ring. She's only been wrestling for 4 years. There's no question about it. She's it. I just don't know if she can beat the greatest female wrestler of all time and win the Intercontinental Championship at Clash in Italy. She got a cheap one over Becky, but when it counts, the man always delivers.
E, do you think that win was cheap?
I would not qualify it as cheap. Becky is the reason the DQ happened. But as far as what's going to happen at Clash, look, I think Sol clearly so physically gifted. I love that the crowd is already behind her. They get the phenomenon that is Sol Ruca. But the difference is really Becky has been doing this at a high level. I don't know if you guys got to check out the A&E rivals between Becky
it was my Super Bowl.
and Charlotte. But of course, but I think it gives you a lot of insight into, at this level, at the very top, this is what the business is. It is manipulation. It is mind games. It is finding a way not only to be physically superior to your opponent, but to have that mental edge. And I think Becky has been through it. When you go to battle with your best friend and you're able to deal with the ups and downs, and not just your best friend, but someone who is as accomplished as Charlotte is, one of the greatest women to ever do it. When you have been through that storm and you've done it time and time again, you've taken on newcomers, you've taken on legends, you've taken on, she has essentially every woman of note who has stepped foot in a WWE ring that was available since the turn of the century, Becky has essentially been in the ring with and has vanquished. That's the level she's at. And now just knowing that she's willing to pull out any tactic possible, she is willing to use any trick, any ref distraction, that is what separates this version of Becky Lynch from the rest of the field. Is as far as her IQ, she's as sharp as they come, maybe the greatest just from a wrestling IQ standpoint. Her wrestling mind and her ability to be crafty, I think, is what, I'm not saying Sol can't get it done in Italy, but that's what Sol is going to have to figure out, is how am I one step ahead of the most cunning woman in this industry?
Let me ask you about that, E, and based on not only your experience, but watching the experiences of the people that you've shared locker rooms with. Everything you just said about Becky is 100% right, and I watched the Rivals A&E special, and so much of it had to do with Becky from the beginning not necessarily being a chosen one and having to find those opportunities and fight at all costs for those opportunities, and then fight at all costs to maintain and keep those opportunities. But at a point, does a performer develop a risk of having those edges soften? At a point, do you get comfortable in that position where you are acknowledged as the greatest to ever do it? You are on these lists of greatest of all time. At a point, do you lose sight when a new generation comes up and realizes, oh, that's the person, that now they're the new Becky. That's the person that I have to take off of that throne if I want to make my mark on this sport?
Absolutely. It is very easy. What is that Marvin Hagler quote about how difficult it is when you're sleeping in satin sheets to get up and train and to do the work. So for so many talents, she has been at the top of this industry for almost a decade. With she took a break, not really a break. She was raising a child, but beyond that, for the most part, this woman we've seen her at the very top of this industry, almost with no breaks. But the difference is, though, Becky's different. So a lot of other people in her position would be coasting. You would see they don't quite have the same spark. You would see them slow down. I don't see that in Becky Lynch. Every time I turn my TV on and I watch Monday Night Raw, I don't see that from Becky Lynch. I don't see someone who is ready to pass the torch down to the next generation. I don't see someone who is softened. I don't see someone who is just there to collect her paycheck. I see a very fired up Becky. So I think in many other examples, you would see a more diminished version of a superstar who's been on top for a very long time. I'm sorry, I just don't see that with Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch is the furthest thing from complacent right now. I mean, with all that Becky's done, and I know I joke around a lot, but I do believe that we're seeing some of Becky's best matches and Becky's best work right now.
I don't realize you were joking. Most of the time, people laugh at jokes. The #1 sports fan festival, Fanatics Fest, returns to the Javits Center in New York City from July 16th through the 19th, 2026. It is a must-attend for WWE fans. You'll be able to meet your favorite superstars and enjoy surprise appearances all weekend long. New superstars just added for Fanatics Fest include Obafemi, AJ Styles, and Trick Williams. Photo and autographs for these superstars will be available for purchase on Friday, May 29th. Keep May 29th circled on your calendars because additional auto and photo opportunities will be added for all superstars, including superstars that are currently sold out. Fanatics Fest general admission and photo opportunity tickets are on sale now at fanaticsfest.com. And you talk about championships being up for grabs, and you talk about huge rematches. How about this one? Jade Cargill gets a shot at getting her championship back at Clash in Italy. Rhea Ripley defends against Jade Cargill. And Megan, you talked about Becky being different, Becky being non-complacent. I agree with all of that. When you talk about athletes who are different, who are special, who are just above that line, that break through those ceilings, Rhea Ripley is that person. This is Rhea Ripley's first kind of big match since becoming WWE Women's Champion once again. Is this a different Rhea Ripley than we're used to seeing?
I think so, right? Because leading into WrestleMania, I think there was just this urge and this desire from all of the fans to see Rhea Ripley back as a singles competitor. We loved the teaming up with Io Sky. We loved what Rhea was able to do in the tag division, but Rhea with a championship, Rhea with the WWE Women's Championship is something that we've been waiting for a while. And I talked about this heading into WrestleMania. I wanted to see Rhea develop that edge. And I think Jade has brought her to that point where we're going to see that in Italy.
I wonder, when you talk about developing that edge, I think that Clash in Italy becomes a good showcase to find out if she has developed that edge, because I think Jade Cargill has developed that edge. I think Jade Cargill getting met with some real adversity seems to have brought out this other side. I think Jade Cargill losing the championship, hearing people doubting her, whether she's the star that she thinks she is or not. It feels like not only in interviews, but when you see her in the ring, there's this aggressive streak that has developed in Jade Cargill, where she's kind of unapologetic about this spot that she's in professional wrestling, and knowing that she too is one of those special few performers. E, do you think that losing the championship may have actually sharpened that edge of Jade Cargill?
I do. I think, and not saying that Jade was complacent, but I think when you almost have this aura of invincibility, and it's like I don't even know if Jade understood she could lose for the longest time. Like it's like not something that even crossed her mind. But then having Rhea beat her for her world championship, I think now she has that hunger. I see that hunger again. And, for me, I think there's so many interesting factors here. Look, if we're just seeing these two women, I think as far as physicality is concerned, it's pretty much a wash. We're two absolute specimens. But the real difference is Rhea has been doing this for a very long time. She has faced so many of the best women in the world. She's been at the very top for a long time. So the experience edge definitely goes to Rhea. But what I think is the interesting factor is I would be shocked if we don't see B-Fab, if we don't see Michin. But what we saw at Saturday night's main event was we saw a well-oiled machine. Those three are clicking. And they can go. I was really impressed with what Michin did. B-Fab looked great. They are really clicking. And now if we're looking at the other side of things, Do we see Charlotte? Do we see Alexa? Because it doesn't seem like sometimes it seems like they're on the same page, other times not. So I think if it comes down to the outside players and their involvement, I think Rhea's championship is in real jeopardy, because when I look on one side, on Team Jade, they are ready. And I think they know what the mission is. They know what the goal is. I think on the other side of things, you have Charlotte, who still, I'm sure, wants to get back to that world championship. You have Alexa, who is also in the middle of things. You don't see three women who are on the same page. So if it comes to outside interference and involvement, if you're a Rhea fan, I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think too, when you talk about those teams, when you talk about those outside people, number one, I would imagine, and E, you would know this, it's difficult to maintain friendships when you're the champion, because you've got a thing that by definition, everybody in that locker room at some level wants. On the other side of that coin, you've got people like BFAB and Michin, who specifically said, when asked, why are you all of a sudden teaming with Jade Cargill? This is going back to before WrestleMania. They said, we've been looking for our opportunity. And they've been pretty clear and in the open about the fact that they've been looking for their opportunity on a very crowded women's roster. And they realized that associating with Jade Cargill elevates their stock. But I think that statement is really only true when Jade Cargill is champion. So while Charlotte and Alexa, I don't know, may have problems with Jade, I don't think Charlotte and Alexa are better off if Rhea is champion. But I do think that BFAB and Michin are better off if Jade Cargill is the WWE Women's Champion.
Could not agree more. And not because this isn't a shot at their ability, but
No.
How often did you see BFAB or Michin on these PLEs before they decided to team with Jade? That wasn't really a thing. So you see the opportunities. You see them at Saturday Night's Main Event. You see that they have elevated because of it. And I think they understand right now there's value in being a role player, you know? But on the other side of things, it's, if we're looking at the old school Bulls, it's you see Rhea, you see Charlotte, and I see two people trying to be Michael Jordan. Whereas on the other side, we have someone who is good being Steve Kerr. We have Tony Kukoc, and they make their Michael Jordan. They elevate Jade's game. So I think right now they're all really humming. They know their roles and they're satisfied in those roles, and they've all benefited because of it. But I think when you're looking at Charlotte, even Alexa, another multi-time former world champion, you have a lot of alphas who I think are gunning for the same thing. And teamwork is really about trust. Can Rhea go into Clash in Italy trusting that her partners will have her back, that they're there for the right reasons? I think Jade can go in with that same trust. I don't know if Rhea can.
Look, you have three of the best singles competitors in women's wrestling history. Nothing about Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, or Alexa Bliss says role player. That's the difference.
The only role they're going to play is top, tippity top.
Exactly.
And I think Rhea Ripley has to develop that thing, which you know that she has, which is being able to, sure, I can coexist with people, but ultimately, whatever the job is, I can do it completely by myself. I think that's what ends up separating. I mean, you look at like a Cody Rhodes, for example. Cody Rhodes has lost a lot of friends during the time that he's been champion, but what makes him Cody is the fact that even when nobody else is around, he can get the job done. Same with Roman Reigns. Charlotte Flair has been in that position. Becky Lynch has been in that position. And I think that is the position that Rhea Ripley needs to be in. She needs to get the conversation away from what's going on around this scene and realize that or make people realize that no matter who your friends are, that's Rhea Ripley, and it doesn't matter. And I think that Rhea's been in that spot before. I'm just interested to find out if she can get back into that spot. And I guess that's one of the things that we'll find out on Sunday. Clash in Italy is bringing WWE spectacle to the heart of Torino with one of the boldest and most visually ambitious slam releases ever created. Inspire by the grandeur, fashion, art, architecture, and energy of Italy, this box features an unforgettable lineup of cards such as Renaissance Base, Marble Signature, Postcards from Italy, Grapplers of Wrath, and much more. Clash in Italy blends WWE intensity with timeless European style for a truly one-of-a-kind collecting experience. Start collecting these cards and more with WWE Slam by Topps now. And I've got to ask you, okay, I wanna pull up this tweet that I saw from Triple H, who posted the match graphic and said, possibly the most anticipated rematch ever. Oba versus Lesnar 2. Clash in Italy. Megan and I were able to be here on Raw Recap right after Brock Lesnar returned to the WWE 30 days after he had left his boots in the ring, and all of us thought he was gone for good. Before we even get into the rematch, what did you make a week ago when Lesnar showed up out of nowhere and attacked Obafemi before the open challenge match?
I was shocked. Look, we were all there at WrestleMania, and we thought Brock is done. We were shocked then. He put his boots down. We all saw it. We thought this was it. When you're around this business, it's hard to be thoroughly surprised. I was thoroughly surprised to see Brock return to lay waste to Oba. And it seemed after WrestleMania that Oba was just truly on a rocket ship, and he was kind of biding his time until he was going to hold that world championship. It felt very inevitable. But I did not think that he was still going to have to deal with the Brock Lesnar problem, and Brock Lesnar is indeed that. He is a problem. It is hard for me, as much as I thought I'm not expecting Oba to take an L the rest of the year. It's difficult for me to think that this version of Brock, after coming back, after having fooled us all, I think that Brock Lesnar is going to come in his most focused version. He has something to prove. To be manhandled the way he was at the show of shows by this newcomer, who does that to Brock? Nobody does that to Brock. Brock, it has something to prove. If he loses again in Italy, don't even come back. Just buy a house over there. We're good. We thank you for your services. You're a legend. Right. Thank you so much. I'm sure there's a lovely ranch out there you can purchase. But I think Brock is going to enter that match with that mindset of, this match needs to be mine. I have to win this.
Yeah, you're going to have to get an airline credit for the flight home because you're not going to need it. You might as well have just booked a one-way. I mean, to that point, Megan, I think E is right. I don't think Brock Lesnar had what I described and what a lot of fans described as a perfect wrestling retirement at WrestleMania. I don't think that Brock Lesnar immediately came back so he could get on an international flight to Italy and lose again to Obafemi. We also saw when Brock returned for the first time, it was Brock's full onslaught against Obafemi. Obafemi took 4 F5s in a row. It was the first time from the road to WrestleMania and even including the match at WrestleMania that Obafemi was completely left laying, and Brock Lesnar had completely physically bested Oba. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the roles have reversed here in the sense that going into WrestleMania, Oba was that unknown that maybe Brock underestimated? Oba was the one responding to a Brock Lesnar open challenge. Now that Brock Lesnar is very familiar with Obafemi, now that Brock Lesnar is the one responding to Oba's open challenge, do you think those roles reverse that much?
They absolutely reverse, because this is the first time now that we're seeing Brock Lesnar's back against the wall. First time in a very long time that Brock Lesnar's back is completely against the wall. Oba had something to prove going into WrestleMania. Yes, we saw Saturday night's main event. Yes, we saw him in the ring with Cody Rhodes, and we saw Drew McIntyre get involved. And yes, we saw all of the incredible things he did at NXT. But when you're at the show of shows, when you're in the ring with someone like Brock Lesnar and all of the things that he has accomplished in WWE, you absolutely have to step up to the plate. You absolutely have something to prove. And Oba beat him so bad that Brock Lesnar retired. I don't know if we've ever seen a Brock Lesnar with a chip on his shoulder this size of something to prove in Obafemi.
Well, to be fair, Brock has some of the biggest shoulders that you've ever seen. So
Massive.
The chip, just to even be noticed,
But I'm really...
would have to be huge.
Listen, Brock Lesnar told us the other week he doesn't give an F.
No, he has said that before. He has said, and I believe him. I believe him. I mean, Paul Heyman seems very confident about this whole thing as well. A lot has been made about Obafemi, and a lot of us have taken to fantasy booking the rest of the year, the rest of the whatever it is. We all have an idea of how Obafemi should be portrayed. You know, there are comparisons made to Hulk Hogan in '85 and Obamania running wild. There are comparisons made to Goldberg and Obafemi going on an undefeated streak like you've never seen before. If Obafemi were to lose to Brock Lesnar on Sunday night, does this knock Obafemi way back? Does this stop Obafemi's momentum?
I don't think it puts him at the back of the line. I don't think it completely resets him. Look, there's no shame in losing to Brock Lesnar. If you've been in the ring with Brock, we've all lost to Brock. It's inevitable, right? But what I'm really intrigued to see, though, is how, if Oba is rattled, you know, it's very easy to be the hammer. Can you be the nail? If you're the guy who was always leading the charge, if you're the guy who was always decimating people, and then, like, I'm sure his confidence after beating Brock the way he did at WrestleMania, it's got to be sky high, thinking he's invincible. Now, how do you handle things if you're left laying? And God forbid, if he loses at Clash in Italy, I think in many ways, I would love to see, hopefully it means we get a rubber match. Hopefully it means that we get to see a third, possibly at SummerSlam in Brock's, hometown of Minnesota. I think that's really intriguing, but I think if Oba is able to win in Italy, it truly cements him as the guy. Everything you thought about him, everything, all the plans, don't cancel them. They're still on. They're like, put him straight in the main event, give world title opportunities, all of that. But if he does lose in Italy, there's going to be a bit of a reset because until he gets over this hump with Brock, I don't think he can get to all his other goals. So this is really the first big important step. And it's very rare to be a newcomer to the main roster and have a first test that is this steep, to have a mountain to climb. It's usually you kind of work your way up, the mid-card titles, and you start. It's like one of the greatest of all time right away. And to manage to beat him and to have to do it again, that's one of the toughest asks we've ever asked for someone who is only less than a year on the main roster.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I think, what makes this rematch so incredible is that the same way we're sitting here going, we can't really call it with Jacob and Roman because of what the stipulation is. Here, you're looking at simply a one-on-one match. No title, no stip. It's just Brock versus Obafemi. But there is so much on the line in this match that we have only been building for a week and a half, that on one end, if Brock loses, he's got to be sipping cappuccinos and move to Italy. On the other end, if Oba loses, there's a full reset and everything that we knew about Oba kind of shifts. Like everything is different after this match, the same way everything is different after Jacob and Roman. And I would argue everything is different after the match that we'll talk about in a moment. But first, I do want to remind everybody that Topps Now captures major milestones and viral moments from the biggest events. We've seen incredible cards already this year from Elimination Chamber, Backlash, and of course, WrestleMania. As we head into Clash in Italy, make sure you're following @Topps on social and that you sign up for notifications on Topps.com so you don't miss limited edition poster cards as well as all the big moment cards from the weekend. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that there are big moments potentially in every single match on this card. But Cody Rhodes, who won the WWE Championship back from Drew McIntyre, who had a strange, winding, at points unpaved road that he had to walk down to WrestleMania. He finally got out of that. And coming off of WrestleMania, he has to get himself off the injured list, only to be looking face-to-face with Gunther. When you talk about something's got to give, on one end, if you said to me, Sam, you think Cody Rhodes is going to lose the WWE Championship at Clash in Italy, whatever it is, 2 PLEs removed from WrestleMania, I go, of course not. Of course not. We're on that Cody run right now. If you ask me the same, Sam, do you think Gunther, after retiring John Cena and then retiring AJ Styles and then beating Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, do you think he's going to take his first loss since beating John Cena at Clash in Italy? I'd say, of course not. No, that wouldn't happen with Gunther yet. And here we are with the WWE Championship on the line. I think that this is even more of a something's got to give scenario than people are realizing on the surface.
Look, I think when you're talking about superstars and you're talking about talent, as a broadcaster, oftentimes I don't think that stats and numbers are really things that I like to pull from often, except for Gunther. It's like, give me those Gunther stats. Oh, yeah, 666 consecutive days holding this title. His record is his win percentage is that high. Yeah, the stats with this guy, they tell so much of the story. He just doesn't lose. It's so rare that he loses that we can kind of count them on one hand. That's the level he's at. That's the level of greatness that he has established. So I think Cody, to me, is going into this match as the underdog. I think Gunther, his focus, I think his dedication right now to getting back to being a world champion, if I'm a Cody fan, I am very, very concerned because this version of Gunther, I think, is someone who in many ways has not been highlighted in the same way we saw maybe a year or two ago. I think Gunther is someone who is always looking to be the face of the brand he's on again, to be the one who closes shows again, to get back to that spot that he's worked so hard to cultivate. This is a tough test for Cody to get past. If anyone can do it, it's Cody. But also for me, as far as match quality, this is the one I'm circling. This is going to be my match of the night, bell to bell. I think this one is truly going to deliver. But Cody is going to leave, win, lose, or draw. He's going to leave this match with lumps all over his chest, all over his body. He's going to be battered and bruised. Gunther is absolutely going to bring it to him. If Cody's able to win, he's going to survive. That's how I view it. Is Cody, a win is surviving for him.
Easy to find, hard to beat. I think that catchphrase applies specifically to this match. And to E's point, Megan, we've talked about this before. Gunther winning the WWE Championship at Clash in Italy would irritate a lot of people. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people that sit there and go, oh, with this Gunther, no, he beats this guy, he beats that guy. Why would Gunther be the guy to retire John Cena? Why would Gunther be the one to retire AJ Styles? How is Seth Rollins losing to Gunther? And now you sit here and halfway through the year, Gunther could potentially be the WWE champion. A lot of people would be irritated by it. And I feel like that's actually points towards Gunther potentially winning.
But it's Gunther, is
exactly
what we always say whenever Gunther's in a situation like the situation he's in right now, where he's going after the WWE Championship. I think Gunther is operating at this level where we knew after he retired John Cena, when is he next going to set his eyes on a world championship in WWE? I didn't see it happening with Cody Rhodes, but because Paul Heyman granted this favor and got the match made, this is how we get to this situation. And I do have to say, to Cody's credit, really ever since winning that championship back, we've seen another layer to Cody Rhodes, I should say. Mm-hmm. We've seen him go to places in the ring in order to figure out a way to win and make decisions that Cody wasn't making before.
Aggressive ones.
And aggressive decisions. And I think Cody is going to need that when it comes to Gunther in Italy.
I would say that that's right. And I think you're right. Cody has looked for those pockets that generally he wouldn't have looked for before. He's learned. I think Cody is a guy who learns from every mistake that he makes. But I also think that when you look at Cody Rhodes, there's one thing that guy loves doing, and that's conquering a monster. I mean, Cody is an old school wrestling guy where the good guy goes in there and he goes against a foe that no man could conquer, and where there's a will, there's a way. He figures it out, and Cody is the one guy that can tame the monster. He is the David that is constantly hitting Goliath with those slingshots until he finally catches him in the eyeball. I think that's who Cody is in a nutshell. And I feel like if there was ever a time for Cody to have one of those moments, one of those conquering the beast, for lack of a better term, because there already is a beast on this card, moments, it would be beating Gunther. By the way, in Europe, it's a different thing when Gunther's in Europe. We've seen Gunther at other Clash PLEs. We've seen Gunther in big matches in Europe, and I feel like the welts are even higher after a match in Europe. But for Cody, like you said, to be able to survive something like that, to be able to be the guy that can beat Gunther, I feel like that's kind of how Cody defines himself as a pro wrestler.
No, I absolutely agree. I think he's always looking for the biggest test, and they don't get much bigger than Gunther. But Cody's going to have to be someone who goes into this match and doesn't hesitate. We've seen him in the past be afraid to do something he perceived as dirty or low. He's going to have that killer instinct. If you're going to beat Gunther, there can be no hesitation. And to your point, Gunther is not in his home country of Austria, but he honed his craft abroad in Europe. And I think he's going to, in many ways, have that home field advantage. I'm so intrigued also to see how the crowd is as well. I would expect a pro Gunther crowd, and I wonder if that rattles Cody. I wonder how much that kind of shakes his confidence, if that makes him, keep his eye kind of off the ball because of that. But I would expect Gunther to really go into this match at Clash in Italy feeling like he has the momentum, feeling like he has the fans behind him, and feeling like he is the favorite. And that is a lot for Cody to have to overcome.
I can't wait to see it. E, you said this was the one that you were circling. Megan, if you could only circle one of them to be like, this is the one, I don't even think I have to ask.
Come on. Becky Lynch, Sol Ruca.
You want to see it. You want to see it. I've got to tell you, as intrigued as I am with tribal warfare, and as much as I want to know, what goes on kind of with my family in a lot of ways. That's a lot of people kind of
all the
say
time.
that.
Yeah, they do. They say you're in the bloodline.
Jacob said it. He said I was the real honorary Uce. I'm just saying that's what Jacob said. I'm not saying that I said. I'm saying that's what Jacob said. I'm not even saying I agree with it. I'm just saying, for the record, Jacob said it. But, man, do I want to see this Oba Brock match again. Man, do I want to see this Oba Brock match. I can't wait for the whole show. E, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. You're the best. And we will be right here after Clash in Italy to recap the whole thing. So make sure you're subscribed across all audio platforms. Comment, like on YouTube. And we will see you on Sunday after Clash in Italy.